You can walk into a room and know within seconds who's upset. You hear it in the half-second pause before someone says they're fine. You catch it in the way they close a drawer a little too hard. And before you've even sat down, your body's already started carrying it, softening your voice, smoothing your face, making yourself smaller. Like their mood is somehow your job. Nobody handed you that job. So why does your nervous system keep clocking in for it, day after day, without you ever agreeing to the shift? Here's what doesn't add up. Nobody asked you to do this. There's no contract, no agreement, no moment where you signed up to be the emotional thermostat for the people around you. And yet, you can feel a friend's bad day from across a table. You can sense your partner's stress before they've put down their bag. And somehow it all lands in your chest like it belongs to you. In a few minutes, I'll walk you through the 7 quiet signs you're doing this. See how many fit your last week. But first, the answer to why is older and stranger than you think. Before you ever learned the word empathy, your nervous system already had the job memorized. While other kids watched cartoons, you watched faces. The microshift at the corner of your mother's mouth. The way your father's footsteps change depending on his day. The pitch of your siblings' silence at the breakfast table. You weren't being nosy. You were gathering data. Because in your world, knowing how someone felt wasn't curiosity. It was safety. Most people only notice a feeling once it's named out loud. You notice it before the person has named it to themselves. That isn't a flaw. It's a finely tuned instrument that hears everything, including what it was never meant to carry. And once an instrument like that is wired in, it doesn't switch off when you turn 18. It just keeps listening, in every room you walk into for the rest of your life. There are 2 things happening when you feel someone else's feelings, and they are not the same. Empathy is understanding. You see your friend is hurting. You feel for them. You stay with them. You go home, and you remain you. Emotional contagion is different. Contagion means another person's emotions actually become yours. Their anxiety lands in your chest as anxiety. Their sadness rolls into your shoulders as sadness. You don't just understand the feeling, you start running their emotional weather inside your own body. Now picture a kitchen at the end of a long day. Your partner walks in, sets the keys down a little too hard, and doesn't say a word. Nothing in your life changed in the last 10 seconds. But suddenly your jaw is tight, your stomach drops, and you're already rehearsing what you might have done wrong. Or this one. You're scrolling through a group chat and one friend starts typing, then stops, then types again, then stops again. You haven't read a single word yet. The message hasn't arrived, but a small dread is already settling into your shoulders, as if the bad news has reached you before the bad news exists. That isn't weakness. It's a learned sensitivity, a very low boundary between observing someone's state and absorbing it as your own. A lot of people grew up with at least some line between what's theirs and what isn't. You didn't get to draw a clear one. And here's the quiet trap. Because the feeling shows up so fast and so vividly inside you, your brain assumes it's yours, which means it must be your job to fix. To understand why this responsibility can land on someone so heavily, we have to go back. This isn't the only path that gets a person here. And plenty of deeply feeling adults arrived through entirely different doors. Temperament, sensory wiring, the simple luck of being born more porous than the average person. But for many, one pattern keeps showing up in the research, and it's worth describing carefully. As a shape, not a verdict on your childhood. Researchers describe a dynamic called parentification, when a child is quietly handed adult-shaped responsibilities long before they're ready for them. Sometimes it's practical, like a kid running a household while a parent is overwhelmed. There's a deeper version, called emotional parentification, when a child becomes a kind of emotional caretaker for a parent who can't fully provide that care back. None of this is a label to pin on you. It's a pattern shape, the way you'd describe weather, not a diagnosis of your home. If any of it fits, here's what it usually looks like. You weren't neglected, you weren't mistreated, but somewhere along the way, you picked up the unspoken job of managing the room, smoothing the edges before they cut anyone, staying attuned, anticipating, softening. A child can't say, "This isn't my job." A child can only adapt. So you adapted. You became excellent at reading the air, and excellent at making the air calmer. Then, 20 years later, your nervous system can't always tell the difference between a stranger's frustration in a coffee shop and the old, original tension at home. It just hears someone is upset and reaches for the same early script. Fix it, soften it, take it on. Somewhere along the way, You stopped just feeling other people's moods. You started predicting them. You hear a slightly clipped okay on a phone call and already have 3 theories about what's wrong. You walk into a meeting and clock who's tense before anyone's spoken. You can sense an argument in your relationship 2 days before it surfaces. To you, this is just paying attention. To everyone else, it looks almost psychic. For a long time, it served you. As a kid, predicting a parent's bad mood meant you could disappear before it broke. As a teenager, reading a teacher in the hallway meant you could dodge embarrassment. As an adult, sensing your boss's tension before a one-on-one meant you could prepare. Prediction kept you safe. The cost, though, is that prediction is never off-duty. And when your value, your closeness, and your safety have all been wired to your ability to anticipate other people's inner states, eventually you don't just notice their feelings. You start to feel responsible for them, as if you somehow caused them, as if, with enough vigilance, you could prevent them. Hold on to that idea, because the 7 signs I'm about to walk you through are not random little behaviors. They are all small symptoms of one thing: a person whose nervous system never got the memo that other people's weather isn't their work to forecast. Here are the 7 quiet signals that the line between you and the people around you has been blurred for a long time. 1. You apologize for things that are clearly not your fault. The rain on someone's commute, a waiter spilling water at the next table, the awkward silence between 2 strangers in an elevator. 2. At a party where you're supposed to be a guest, you're the one quietly making sure the host has a drink, and the quiet person in the corner has someone to talk to. 3. You replay one tiny moment from a conversation while brushing your teeth that night, scanning for what you might have done to make someone uncomfortable. 4. You feel guilty when you say no to a small favor, like you've stolen something off their plate. 5. The cashier was short with you, and 3 blocks later your stomach is still in a knot, as if you'd done something wrong. 6. You walk into a family dinner and quietly become a slightly different version of yourself, calibrated to whoever in the room is most fragile. 7. You feel exhausted in a way that food and sleep don't fix, because the tiredness isn't physical. It's the accumulated weight of feelings that were never yours to carry. If even 3 of these sound like a description of your last week, you're not broken. You're a child who learned a very specific job, and nobody ever told you that you could stop. There is a price for this, and it's quieter than most people realize. It doesn't usually look like a breakdown. It looks like a slow erosion. You wake up tired. You can't remember the last thing you wanted just for yourself, without first checking how it would land for someone else. You make decisions through 3 other people's likely reactions before you've even noticed your own preference. Here's the one that catches people off guard, and it ties straight back to sign number 7. Picture good news arriving at your own door. A promotion, an acceptance letter, a test result that came back fine. And in the half-second before joy is supposed to show up, you feel a strange flatness instead. Your first thought isn't yes. It's a fast little scan. Who in my life will struggle to be happy for me? Who do I have to soften this for? Who might feel small if I share this too loudly? By the time the joy might have arrived, you're already managing it on behalf of someone else. The moment that was supposed to be yours just quietly slipped through your fingers, and you didn't even notice it leaving. At its worst, this pattern has names: people-pleasing, codependency. But the labels matter less than what your nervous system has actually been doing on autopilot since it was small. The cost shows up everywhere. Your friendships start to feel like jobs. Your relationships start to feel like obligations. You sit next to your partner on the couch, and instead of relaxing into the evening, you're tracking the temperature of theirs. Your own emotions get blurry, because there's never been space to find out what they actually are. Here is the truth no one taught you when you were 8 years old and reading The Room. Other people's feelings are real. They matter. They deserve compassion. But they were never yours to manage. Your mother's stress was never your stress to fix. Your father's disappointment was never a verdict on you. Your friend's bad day was not a quiet request for you to disappear inside it. Your partner's quiet evening is not a problem you caused by existing. You've spent so long not allowed to make that distinction that the question itself feels almost shocking. Wait, that one wasn't mine? Imagine, for a second, walking into your own kitchen at the end of a hard day and letting your partner's silence simply sit there in the room, not denying it, not dismissing it, just not absorbing it. You'd still notice, you'd still care, but you'd stay you. Most of the people in your life don't actually need you to take on their feelings. They need you to stay present and steady while they feel their own. There is a profound difference between standing with someone in the rain and standing in the rain so they don't have to. One is love, the other is a job description you wrote when you were 5 years old and never got to retire from. For your whole life, you've probably wished you felt less. Less of strangers, less of the room, less of the tension you could sense before anyone named it. You've called it a curse, a flaw, the reason you're tired, the reason you struggle. But pay attention to what's actually underneath that depth. The same sensitivity that gets exhausted by other people's emotions is the one that can sit with a friend in the worst moment of their life and not flinch, not look away, not rush them, not fill the silence with something useless. You stay, and that staying changes them. The same attentiveness that picks up tension across a room is the one that makes a child feel safe in your presence within about 30 seconds, because they can tell, somehow, that you actually see them. The same depth that absorbs too much is the depth that lets you notice when someone is one bad day from breaking and changes the way you speak to them. The same radar that exhausts you at parties is the one that makes you the friend whose voicemail people listen to twice. Now picture what that depth, no longer paying double tax, actually makes possible in a life. A conversation across a small table where the person on the other side feels found, really found, maybe for the first time in years. A creative practice, writing, painting, building, raising a kid, with a quality of inner truth in it that less perceptive people simply cannot fake. A long love, where two adults are seen by each other in detail and not in outline, and the room they share gets quieter and easier with time instead of louder and harder. That is what the sensitivity gives back, once it stops paying everyone else's bills. The depth was never the problem. The depth is the gift. The problem was that nobody taught you how to hold the gift without carrying the giver too. Once you learn that, once you learn to feel deeply without taking ownership of what isn't yours, your sensitivity stops costing you and starts working for you. There is a small phrase that, if you let it sink in, will quietly rewrite the next 30 years of your life. Feel with, not feel for. To feel for someone is to take their pain on as a project. You hold it. You strategize it. You exhaust yourself trying to lift it off them. You make their inner world your responsibility, and you make yourself accountable for an outcome you don't actually control. To feel with someone is different. You sit beside their pain. You let it be theirs. You stay open, warm, attentive, but you don't pick it up and walk away with it. Try this one sentence the next time someone you love is struggling. I can care about this without carrying it. Say it silently, like a quiet hand on your own chest. It is not a wall. It is not abandonment. It is the small line that keeps you a person while you stay close to another person. You will, at first, feel guilty using it. Your old training will whisper, if I'm not carrying it, I'm leaving them alone. That is the child's voice. It is not true. Letting other people own their own feelings isn't abandonment. It's respect. It's the highest form of presence you can give a person, being fully with them without disappearing into them. So here's the answer your nervous system has been waiting decades for. You feel responsible for everyone else's feelings because you were trained, very early, to mistake their weather for yours. You weren't being weak, you were being faithful, to a job no one should have given a child. Their feelings were never your fault. They were never your fix. They are simply allowed to exist in the same room as you, without belonging to you. You can care, you can notice, you can love deeply, and still, finally, get to keep yourself. Before you go, sit with this. Of the 7 signs, which one was the clearest description of your last week? Which one hit first? Take a quiet minute with that, and keep the small sentence close. I can care about this without carrying it. If this gave words to something you've carried for years, subscribe for more breakdowns of how highly aware minds actually work. How to use the depth without drowning in it.